Everyone thinks that this is the biggest pandemic to hit humankind. I read something from a very credible professor from America. Forget his name, but anyway, trust me, he's credible. And he said that coronavirus is the biggest thing to happen, the biggest pandemic to happen to us in the last 250 years. It's bigger than the Spanish flu. It's bigger than any crisis that we've had. The Great Depression in the last 250 years. I've got a different opinion. There's a far bigger pandemic, and I don't know if pandemic's the right word to use. There's a far bigger thing that's happening. It's not COVID. It's linked to COVID. It's definitely married to COVID. COVID is almost like the fuel to the fire. Anybody want to take a guess what I'm referring to? Hi, Leo. Hey, Paul. Okay, anybody have a guess? Okay, not please, not all at once, guys. I'm just being cheeky. Okay, so the biggest pandemic, and yeah, the biggest shit shaker that we are facing is Industry 4.0. And this has been ignited by COVID-19 because all of a sudden we have been made to work from home. We've been made to embrace technology. We've lost our jobs. We've had to think outside the box in terms of making money. We've had to upskill. Yeah, so it's really been the fuel, in my opinion. This is my opinion. This is not fact. This is my opinion. The biggest pandemic's got such a negative connotation, but in my mind, it's not COVID, it's Industry 4.0. And the reason I say pandemic's the wrong word to use for this is because it's a freaking scary thing, the most scariest thing ever, more than 250 years. But at the same time, it's scary, but it's flippin' damn exciting because there are a lot of opportunities coming our way. Now, that's my opinion. This is not stratified systems theory for all my psychometry friends or my psychometry and industrial psychologists. I want to take you through the different revolutions that we've had over time, right? So starting with the first industrial revolution, the steam engine. We're looking at about 1770 when this was discovered, and steam gave rise to energy. Okay, so we could set things in motion, and it was a really incredible invention of its time. Fast forward to about 100 years, the second industrial revolution. This is around about 1870. Okay, this is where the advent of electricity came, gas, oil. So now we've got even more energy to work with. But perhaps the biggest inventions of this time was the first automobiles, as well as the first telephones, because for the first time, we could now communicate, okay, at distance, it was incredible for those times. Heading through to the third industrial revolution. Who remembers a computer that looks like that? How scary is it that we probably remember those floppy disks that went into, okay, maybe some of you don't, but I do. So fast forward another 100 years, 1965-ish, and this is when telecommunications came to the fore. We're talking the first cell phones, we're talking the first computers, but these computers were stupid, okay? So we had to tell the computers what to do. They were very dwarf. I mean, I think the first computer was the size of a room. It was something ridiculous. You may have noticed that the trend was every couple of hundred, or not couple, but every 100 years, there was like this big invention in terms of the industrial revolutions. But less than, almost half, okay, almost half, less than half of that 100 years, we're now heading into the fourth industrial revolution. And this we take it from about the year 2000, Y2K. But for the first time now, we're seeing intelligent computers. We're seeing computers that are able to do things that are independent of human beings' input. Okay, so self-driving cars, self-flying airplanes. I kid you not, this is not sci-fi. This is not Will Smith in iRobot. I remember watching that years ago and thinking, no man, this is a stupid movie. And now it's like, hey, actually, hey. So the emerging powers of computers is that they are gaining the capacity to think. You've all heard of the term AI in terms of artificial intelligence. I mean, okay, so let's talk psychometry here, or psychology. Many of you will be familiar with the CPP. I worked under the developer, Marietta Prinsloo. In fact, she was my supervisor for my internship. For those of you who don't know, the CPP is called the Cognitive Process Profile. And Dr. Prinsloo, Marietta, actually created the CPP in the 90s. Okay, in the 90s. The CPP, so you should do it with a mouse, the assessment. There are 15,000 feedback loops with the CPP that starts to track your thinking. Okay, so this is kind of like a demonstration of artificial intelligence and looking at the way in which the brain works from a psychometric perspective. So today, if a business has 20% less humans, 20% or less humans working for them, they are an Industry 4.0 business. Okay, and that's the trend that we're going to start to see. I know that you're probably thinking, okay, but what does this have to do with me? I'm in psychology, like what the heck? Trust me, this is all going to impact us, even as professionals in private practice, or perhaps if we're working for a business as a psychology professional. And what about our partners, our husbands, our children? Okay, so this does have an impact on all of us. I'm sure that you've probably seen the Amazon or heard about the Amazon warehouses where the whole thing is operated by machines. There's not one human, not one. Okay, Industry 4.0, it's even contracting you and me to work for the big organizations. So today I'm sat in my room. Okay, I've got a fabulous light. But anyway, I didn't have a desk. So I ordered a desk from Take-A-Lot. And this thin box arrived yesterday. I was like, okay. So I opened it up and I had to assemble the desk. And I'm very proud to say that I did it all by myself. But Industry 4.0 is even encompassing, they're engaging us to do some of their work for them. Okay. Medical procedures, guys. Oh my word. So currently they're guided by humans in terms of, if you look at very intricate heart surgeries or whatnot. So they're guided by humans that operate that equipment. The estimate is that in 3 to 5 years, there will not be humans that are necessary to operate those machines. Fact. Scary fact. So what you may not know, because I mentioned things like airplanes that could fly by themselves and self-driving cars, and you're probably thinking, yeah, 50 years, no. It is possible today. Do you know what the single biggest stumbling block is for these technologies to come to the fore? And that's legislation. Legislation at this moment in time is stopping technology from rising up. Once that legislation passes and it starts snowballing, you're going to see these things, they're going to become commonalities in our life. What drives the Industry 4.0 revolution? So the first biggest thing is business wants to bring costs down, okay? Go figure. The second thing is business wants to expand the reach that they have of their products. They want to be manufacturing at least 1,000 times faster, okay? So a big challenge that we face, and perhaps those of you that are within the realm of career counseling that we need to be cognizant of, is that a lot of our clients aged between, let's say, 45 to 65 years old are being pushed out of the workforce as youngsters with Industry 4.0 knowledge are coming and entering into the workplace. So we need to be giving these, I mean, 45 to 65, that's not old. Okay, so we need to be giving these more mature professionals support and help and advice. And we'll unpack a little bit of that, not just for them, but just for you as well. So the next slide, again, I said my son is a superstar today. This is the report that we received from school this term. So mummy's been sat at home doing homeschooling. I will say this, that Redham has been absolutely amazing in terms of the online platforms, but it's been hectic. But I remember when class started with coding and robotics, and I was like, what? And the first class, I got an instruction pile about that thick in terms of what the different, what do they call it here? TIGs or something. I don't even know, but the different codes, what they mean. And I literally gave my son Ethan the phone. I didn't have to help him. He literally looked at the instructions for his task and he coded something. So he's just turned 7. Ladies, I'm sure I'm not alone. I hadn't even seen a cell phone when I was 7 years old. And now my 7-year-old is coding. I'll tell you a quick funny story. I think it's funny at least. So Ethan's not here today because otherwise I would have been disrupted about 500 times. So he's gone to Granny and Grandpa, but what I did was I gave him a cell phone, the phone that he's holding in the picture, and I said, you can phone mommy anytime, okay? So he phoned between my husband and I about 15 times yesterday, never mind. So I showed him how to just look for mommy's face on WhatsApp and just press on the video. So he was so chuffed with himself, he phoned us so many times. And the last phone call last night, he phoned just after 8, and I could hear Granny in the background going, okay, that's quite enough now. You know, enough of this hotline. And as we were saying goodbye to him, all I could hear was Grandpa's voice going, how the hell do you put this thing off, man? No, I'm not used to this. And Garth's going, Dad, you pressed the red phone. Where's the red phone? I love them. Love you guys. But it just shows, like, we don't grasp how far away this is for people that are mature. And for youngsters that have grown up with this stuff, I mean, their brains are operating on a different level. It's super impressive, I think. Okay, so I mentioned to you before, there's different paradigms of thought, there's different theories in terms of what impact is the new world of work going to have on us, you and I, our children, our partners, our family members. Let's start with a negative stance, because it is a realistic one out there. But the first school of thought says that with the advent of technology and Industry 4.0, the divide between rich and poor is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and unemployment worldwide will become worse. Okay, so that's our first school of thought. Our second school of thought is more of a neutral stance in terms of people are agile, people are resilient, people will find a way around despite technology. And I don't know what that looks like. Maybe it's working with robots, like Will Smith and iRobot. But the perspective or the school of thought that I encompass, that I choose to encompass, and that I do inherently believe, is this third school of thought, which is more of a positive perspective. But the third school of thought says that a lot of jobs will be created. They will be different and will demand for a different set of skills. So over here, we've got a picture of a drone pilot, okay? Or if we think of a 3D printer technician, I mean, these days, I didn't even know this, but you can actually do an eye test on your phone with some software, send the results through to a 3D printer and have your spectacles printed for you. True story. But there'll be technicians that operate this sort of equipment. So I mean, if you think back in the day, when I started university, about 100 years ago, when I started university, my second major was communications because I love marketing and all those fun things. But there wasn't a lot. There was internet, there was some social media, but there wasn't a lot. Today, if I'd had the option to, I would have loved to have done digital media marketing and social media marketing. So I can't tell you what those jobs will look like in the future, but I do believe that there will be a whole new host, a whole new plethora of jobs to choose from for our children and our partners. Okay, so in future, there's going to be 4 workspaces, 4 categories that we can fall into as economically active persons such as ourselves. The first are called system designers. Okay, so what's that? System designers are going to be like your engineers, your mathematicians, your scientists, the people that actually create the software around how the drone flies, how they're going to create and design the code for how the 3D printers actually print. Okay, so these are the guys that they're creating stuff. Okay, they're designing it, they're coding, they're programming, they're conceptualizing. Those are your system designers. These professionals will be proficient in things like data, statistics, mathematics, artificial intelligence, so on and so forth. The next category of professionals that we're going to be looking at are those that are called technology enablers. Okay? Give me a thumbs up or down if you've ever seen a machine like that in your life. Okay, so one of my best friends, she's not here with me today, Chantel Hoffman. She's amazing. She went through a hectic trauma in terms of a brain tumor that was found, and she had to go for brain surgery, literally. And subsequently to that, her follow-up was undergoing radiation and chemotherapy. And for one of her appointments, I took her for one of her radiation sessions. And that's what the machine looks like. So I was still geared up for, this thing's going to be intense. It's going to take like a long time. Anyway, so we go in. We went into the room with her. There's this, I'm not joking, the steel door is about that thick in the room. So we went in initially. She puts on a mask that keeps her face still. And we could leave our phone to record what was going to happen, but we had to leave the room because of the radiation. And like I said, the steel door was that thick. So the technicians left, we left. As I sat down, he's like, okay, cool, we're done. What? Went back in, looked at the recording, and this machine was literally done within seconds in terms of zapping the brain with radiation. All the technicians did was they walked out, pressed their buttons, and the machine did the rest. Okay, so those guys are what we would call technology enablers. Okay, so what they do, they have expertise, all right? So they make the tech work, such as working with medical equipment or flying drones or so on and so forth. They're highly skilled and will probably be licensed professionals. So they'll have to carry licenses in terms of operating the equipment that they do. All right. Third category of workers, of professionals, or economically active people, is the functional enablers. Okay, so these are the guys that technology cannot replace for now. We think of things like a lawyer or a barrister that's arguing in court to defend his client. Okay, so as of yet, very difficult for computers to replicate that behavior. Medical researchers, the ones that are building the computers, police officers, childcare, those in management roles, wildlife and conservation. Here's a very interesting thought. Did you know that one of the most difficult professions to try and replicate in terms of artificial intelligence are your hairdressers? So they might have been hard hit with COVID-19, but in terms of the longevity of their careers, they're in a good vocation. So from a competencies perspective, let's speak with our psychometry language, those that are psychometrists that are listening to this webinar. But those who display competencies such as empathy or EQ, innovation, strong leadership skills, critical thinking processes, problem solving, those are a number of the competencies that our functional enablers possess. Our fourth category are the artists. So it's not, the person that can draw a pretty picture. That's not what I'm referring to. I am demonstrating with my picture on your slide in terms of the singer. But if we look at artists, not just entertainers, not just actors, but artists in terms of actually creating things. Okay, so if you think of a marketing strategist in terms of looking at the angle in which to market this particular product. Think of, not architects, think of the person that designs the look and feel of a business, not the person that plugs in the design into a software program, a person that thinks of something completely novel and unique. Think of people that stop trends. What about fashionistas, fashion designers? Okay, so new ways of doing fashion. That's what I'm referring to when we talk about artists. Some other ideas that I have made a note of. Those who create compelling stories, so content curators, content for teaching, training materials, authors, those who use language. Okay, so those are all of our artists. So what happens to the rest of us, or the rest of the population that doesn't fall into those four categories? Well, as opposed to being part of this mainstream massive engine of the economy as we will know it, there will be substream economies, okay? And those substream economies, the umbrella under that is self-employment. Okay, so that's the little niche coffee bar around the corner. That is the farmer that grows his organic vegetables. That is the mommy that designs leather bibs for babies. Okay, so there will be substreams of the economy, and your consulting and your self-employment will largely fall into these substreams. So, I beg your pardon. So what is our best approach? Especially when we're giving advice to our clients, but also to take heed of for ourselves as professionals in private practice. And that is my advice to you, is our best approach is to demonstrate agility, okay? Flexibility, grit. But the big one here is agility. We need to be proactively reacting to our environment. Act in a positive way. Don't react from a place of fear, okay? Be well informed. Don't shy away from this stuff. Be well informed about what is happening around the world from a technological perspective, and continuously upskill yourself. Okay, ladies, I was completely allergic to the notion of having to do this workshop in this space. It's not the way I roll, okay? I love getting up and walking and talking to people and pulling them up and engaging. I can't even hear you because you're muted, and that's fine, thank you. I'm allergic to this forum, but I've had to challenge myself to encompass it, because this is the way of the future. For our children, for those of you who have children or will be having children in future, my advice to them, to relay on to them, is that obviously if they are gifted, but nudge them to take mathematics through to high school, to take science through to high school, and to take computer science, coding, robotics, not the basic. I know with a lot of schools, they offer 2 types of computer science. Not all schools, a lot of schools. Push them to do the advanced computer science. I know it's hard. And if they're completely allergic to it, okay, re-strategize. But if you can, please encourage your children to consider those subjects. It's so important for their futures.